discussion, which we'll see, maybe we'll come back to. But in the meantime, I'm now running on 2 devices. Let me see if I can share the right slides on the right device. Link. Now working. Okay. Okay, so hopefully you can see. Actually, that's the wrong slides. I didn't. You can see my screen. Now let me reload the correct slides. That's the advantage of swapping machine. In the middle of something. Bear with me a moment. Should be better. Okay, so just briefly. Right, so the plan for the call today, after that slight delay, is, as you can see, I'm going to hand over to Michael in a moment to talk about the blockchain-based naming systems and the DNS. So part 2 in this discussion, given that we sort of touched on this topic a few weeks back when we had our panel discussion, and Michael intimated then, I think on that call, if I recall, that he wanted to take a fresh look at the topic, and specifically in the context of ICANN's registry service evaluation process. So we'll do that, and then depending on timing, which has got a bit awry today, we may pick up on a few other things as well. But we'll definitely at least cover the important parts. So I'm going to hand over to Michael, and once as I do that, I will then load his slides on my other device so that hopefully you can all see them. So let me stop sharing here for a second. Michael, the floor is yours, and your slides should catch up with you in just a moment.
Sure. So thank you, Andrew. And while Andrew is doing that, again, this is kind of a continuation of the last time we had spoken about blockchain and alternate naming systems a couple of months ago. And if you recall, I was the kind of neutral panelist between the 3 speakers. So one of the things that I think is always important, particularly when talking about this particular topic, is all too often I find that a lot of the presentations tend to be more marketing driven and less technical driven. So what I have tried to do is really focus here on focusing on some of the technical aspects as opposed to marketing. So next slide, Andrew, please. So whenever I hear someone who wants to speak about blockchain or blockchain naming systems, the question that I always ask myself is, okay, what is their interest? What skin do they have in the game? So first off, I'm an engineer, a lawyer. I am a registrant of 2 Web 2 domains. I have 0 Web 3 domains. I have 0 cryptocurrency holdings. Part of my interest in this topic actually dates back to 2017 at ICANN 60 at Abu Dhabi. This was one of the first times that ICANN actually began to address this particular issue of emerging identifiers. And myself and Pindar Wang, another ICANN board member, both participated in a panel discussion before the ICANN board with a representative from the Ethereum Foundation. Following that particular meeting in 2018, I worked with the .lux registry that did one of the first, if you will, DNS blockchain integrations. Last year, as part of the registration operation workshop, I was on the planning committee, and I was responsible for the one panel discussion entitled Responsibly Bridging the Web 2, Web 3 Divide. And as part of the upcoming ICANN Contracting Party Summit being held in Manchester, England, later this month, I will be moderating the panel entitled Responsibly Bridging the Web 2, Web 3 Namespace. The other thing that I had noted previously, Nova Registry, which is an existing TLD operator for the .link top-level domain, has announced that they will be filing an RSEP, and they asked for my assistance. So that is my statement of interest. Next slide. Last month, Andrew Alleman, who a number of people in the domain name industry may followed, published the following article that Web3 domain names are dead. And the basis of this was a link, I was going to say tweet, but a post on X by Matt Gould, who is the CEO of Unstoppable Domains, who basically declared them dead and noted that Unstoppable would no longer be focusing on Web3 domain names going forward. So this I think it would be an understatement to say that this did create somewhat of a ripple in the broader community. Next slide, please. So that's it, the end, thank you. No, only kidding. While this, I think, was an interesting statement by Matt, and I do agree with some of the statements that Andrew had said in his article, there are still a number of people that still believe in this particular technology and their respective business models, and our friends at the Ethereum Foundation or SNS are not going away. So that's one of the reasons that we're going to continue to have this discussion. Next slide, please. So as I had mentioned previously, there is going to be an ICANN Contracting Party Summit that will be held in Manchester later this month. In fact, Andrew himself, I believe, will be attending in person. The panel that I have convened is really, I'm really impressed with the panel that I've been able to assemble. Paul Hoffman from ICANN will be speaking on a lot of the definitional misconceptions that I think leads to a lot of confusion. His work, I think, in the IETF is particularly important and has really helped me in better appreciating how to navigate this particular complex subject matter. Jim Gavlin from Identity Digital, he will actually be speaking to some of the current work that is taking place. Yes, I spelled the names wrong. I apologize. That's what happens when you get up 4 o'clock in the morning to prepare a slide deck last minute. I will apologize to Jim and Rick for the misspellings of their name. Rick is currently chairing the study group, the group within SAC that is it's entitled RIDE, and I'll get to that in a couple of minutes. And all three of those speakers are confirmed, and tentatively waiting for Francisco Arias from ICANN staff, who is a key person in the ICANN RSEP process. For those that are interested, the sign up ends today. ICANN is enabling both in-person as well as remote participation. But if you truly want to have an in-depth technical discussion, I'm really proud of this panel, and think they will have a lot to offer. Next slide, please. So one of the things that is important here is Paul Hoffman is one of the co-authors of RFC 9499, and what Paul has always, what I have found has been incredibly instructive in speaking with him, is the importance of getting the terminology right. And what he has stressed is that when you use the term naming system, that this leads to certain expectations in the broader technical community. If I could go to the next slide, please. And one of the things that I wanted to do here is show you, I wanted to put back the two presentations, the ROW presentation where I talked about responsibly bridging the Web 2, Web 3 divide, and then the title of the Contracting Party Summit where I used namespace. And Paul stressed that the use of the namespace here was probably not the right title to use here. And the reason why, next slide. Oh, did I jump ahead one? Yes. So what's important here, if we could go back one, Andrew, I jumped ahead there, sorry. So the importance here with namespace is that when you talk about namespace, that namespace needs to be authoritative. And the problem is when you sit there and talk about competing namespaces or sources of authority, when those do not sync, this can create problems. Next slide. So as I said, Rick Wilhelm from PIR and from SAC, he has been in charge of this particular working party, and it was originally convened back in late 2024 at ICANN 81, and at that time, the original references within SAC talked about alternate naming spaces. At ICANN 83, the stated goal of the working group was to alert ICANN and the broader internet community to the risk posed by namespace collisions with alternate naming spaces related to the next round based on documented DNS leakage and user confusion. So the reason, and this was part of the contribution that SAC made as part of the broader next round of new GTLDs, or the sub-pro policy development process. And I think part of the motivation here was there were already, at this particular point in time, some entities that were operating these Web3 names in the Web3 namespace that were indicating their intention to apply for a corresponding Web2 name as part of ICANN's next round of new GTLDs. And in light of that potential collision and user confusion, this was part of the motivation for this group to step forward and undertake their work. This group has generally had some of their working sessions open at different ICANN regional meetings. Usually most of SAC work takes place behind closed doors and out of sight, but this is one where they have opened up some of their work to the broader community, which I think is really important. Next slide, please. So the elephant in the room, and this is something that in my discussions with Paul, he's always stressed, and I had touched upon this a couple of minutes ago. Namespaces need to be authoritative, but what happens when data in competing namespaces do not sync, or perhaps worse, actually conflict? There have been a number of situations where certain blockchain projects have either been deprecated, have no longer been supportive, have been abandoned because of fees and stuff like that. And because of this is something that is really important when you need to when you use the word namespaces, it really should give one pause. There also, I think, is the difference between support versus integration. Some of that early work that I had done with .lux was initially focused just on supporting the use of a wallet address in the .lux top level domain. Integration is something that has been done more, and I'll talk to this in a minute, by .box and by .locker, where they have done a more tight integration into the corresponding blockchain naming system. The other important thing, which I think sometimes gets lost, and this is something that SAC has, I think, really been properly drilling down on, is what is user expectation. Because a lot of these blockchain naming services call their product service offerings a domain name, and because these names can potentially also be offered side by side by some ICANN accredited registrars, there is a concern about what the user expectation is. One of the benefits of ICANN and its policy development process, while not perfect, it has, through the last 26 years, succeeded in establishing some important safeguards that consumers, as well as third parties, particularly with the UDRP and other rights protection mechanisms, have relied upon. And when you do not have this, the potential for end users to be harmed is something that is concerning. And again, this is part of, I think, the remit that the SAC RIDE working party has looked at. Next slide, please. So one of the things that I think is important, just to kind of level set here before we move into the discussion with ICANN's RSEP, is to look at what is really going on right now. So in February of 2024, GoDaddy, the largest ICANN accredited registrar and the Ethereum naming service, announced that they were going to empower through their domain name portal the ability to empower registrants to link their domain names to a blockchain wallet. In April of 2024, the .box TLD announced their integration with the DNS. That was followed by .locker in September of 2025 announcing their integration. In November of last year, D3 announced the DOMA protocol, which empowered individual domain name registrants to potentially tokenize their domain names. And then on top of this, there are various Web3 blockchains / corresponding namespaces, some of the more popular being .eth, .sol, and .crypto. Next slide, please. So, ICANN RSEP and its history, and Suzanne, you probably can appreciate this history as much as myself. So the RSEP is an acronym for the Registry Service Evaluation Process, and as originally conceived through the ICANN GNSO policy development work in 2004 and 2005, it was designed to speak to provide predictability when a registry operator wanted to offer a new service. This was incorporated in 2005 as part of the new baseline registry agreement. The genesis of this particular policy initiative was VeriSign Site Finder and the corresponding litigation that ICANN and VeriSign found itself in. And the result of this, as I mentioned, business and technical predictability. The importance of the RSEP is once ICANN opines and says, yes, this is acceptable, that then creates precedent for other ICANN accredited registries to say, okay, I would like to offer this service as well. So on the URL provided there below, I have provided a list to all of the historical ICANN RSEPs that have been filed since 2005. Next slide, please. Yes, and just a historical, if you will, trivia note, Easter egg. I was actually involved in the very first RSEP that was approved by ICANN. It was the second one filed. The first one was rejected. I was involved in the second one, which was approved. So let's talk about the ICANN RSEP components. So what ICANN does is ICANN requires all registry operators that would like to offer a new service to basically tick some boxes. Not surprisingly, they ask for a definition of the proposed service. There is then the requirement where the registry operator needs to answer a number of security and stability questions. If during the review ICANN believes that the proposed service may give rise to certain security or stability concerns, ICANN has the ability to designate that review to an RSEP panel. This is an additional fee that the registry operator will have to pay to have a group of, if you will, DNS experts review and opine. As I had mentioned before, the very first RSEP that was filed was by .travel, which sought to, if you will, offer a site finder wildcard-like service, and that was rejected. There also are a number of competition questions that are asked, and ICANN does have the ability to potentially refer this service offering to an appropriate competition authority. There are then some standard provisions regarding the contractual provisions and how one's existing registry agreement may need to be modified, as well as consultation. ICANN is looking at what outreach within the impacted communities, as well as the registrar supply chain, what consultations were undertaken. And finally, the other, which the lawyer in me appreciates, in there are a number of questions that ICANN asks regarding potential intellectual property considerations. So again, this is the RSEP. Next slide, and I think we're almost done here. So why is Nova Registry submitting an RSEP? And the reason they're doing this is they have announced that they're going to be applying for approximately 200 TLDs as part of the next round. At $227,000, that equates to writing ICANN a check, a $40 million plus check. There are a percentage of these TLDs that are going to be Web3 and crypto related. So what they are looking to do is to, if you will, be proactive and actually engage in ICANN to seek business and technical predictability. And just one other final point. Part of the reason that I actually was approached by Nova was it was during last year's ICANN annual meeting where during the public forum, I basically asked ICANN staff why the existing registry operators that had deployed some of these Web3 integrations, why none of them had formally submitted an RSEP. I viewed that as a potential compliance issue for ICANN because I struggled to see how these would not rise to a level of a registry service. And as a result of me challenging ICANN on that particular issue, Nova said, that's a good point. We want an RSEP. So that is it. And I think I am now at the end of the presentation. So hopefully I have caught up from a late start and would now like to kind of toss it out. And again, my apologies to Jim and Rick for the misspelling of their names. I will apologize. Yes. Okay.
Hi. So if someone's already had an RSEP accepted, is there a process to have them have to do it again if they changed their something?
So if there is a material change, but basically speaking, so I'll look to Susan here. I believe PIR has actually, not only has PIR filed a number of RSEPs, they have actually also been a pioneer, so to speak, in connection with RSEPs. So one of the things PIR did with ONG and NGO was they originally proposed a service where they would bundle the two names so that registering a domain in one TLD would result in that a corresponding name appearing in the other one. So this was an RSEP, and then I believe there was, Susan, I believe PIR did another RSEP, something to do with DNS if I recall. But the importance here is once one registry comes forward and unfortunately has to pay that $100,000 plus bill to ICANN, it sets technical precedents so that when someone else comes and applies, they just need to say, we are seeking to do the same service that has already been approved by ICANN in connection with this TLD. So that is why this is such an important thing. And again, the genesis of the RSEP goes back to the VeriSign site finder litigation and as a way for all parties to have predictability. So hopefully that answers your question. Andrew.
I'm just curious on the typical time frame for the process. Is there, what's the sort of normal expectation, Michael, for this one?
Good question. And I in my haste of trying to speed through, I actually unfortunately skipped that talking point though. So thank you for raising it. ICANN, the stated process envisions a 16-day period. Unfortunately, for simple RSEP request or something that has already been previously done, ICANN is pretty good at keeping at that tight time frame and will quickly turn it around. However, when you do approach ICANN with something that is, I would say, unique or something that has not seen before, that 16-day window, I would say, is largely aspirational. And what ICANN says, part of what ICANN will engage in is they'll say, oh, we're just in preliminary discussions. We need to know more. We don't want to start the clock ticking. I have seen situations with some registry clients where that engagement and preliminary review has stretched for months. And, part of the, if you will, the dynamic between registry operator and ICANN is if a registry operator seeks to pressure ICANN will say, well, if you're going to insist on filing this before we've done our preliminary review, this might result in an RSEP, which then means, do you really want to pay a $100,000 bill, or do you want to wait a little longer? So that is part of the practicality. Overall, I think the RSEP has had a positive impact on things. I am concerned that there are some where the RSEP fee may actually represent, if you will, an innovation tax. the two services that the services that PIR had put forward, I thought were an overall benefit. And, fortunately, PIR is one of the larger legacy TLDs, had the funding and resources to pay that additional fee. But I could see other smaller registries not being able to have that resource. And to me, that potentially could be problematic if it is impeding innovation. So hopefully that answered your question, Andrew.
Yeah, it does. I was just curious, given the volume of applications for Nova, just wondering whether they would know the outcome before they have to submit and pay their $40 million. But it sounds like that's feasible.
Yeah, I mean, that is... I am just someone helping. That is probably a better question asked to Nova and ICANN, and both of them will both be in Manchester. So maybe you can ask that question yourself in a couple of weeks when we meet up in Manchester.
Thank you. Anyone else got any questions or comments for that matter? Or Mike? Did you want to come
in? Hey, Michael. I have a somewhat naive question regarding ENS. I don't know if it's strictly the subject of your presentation, but I wonder if there is if there was any impact in the implementation of ENS when it transitioned from proof of work, where you need a lot of gas to introduce transactions, to proof of stake, if that was incorporated into ICANN's criteria for widely deploying ENS.
So the simple answer is I am probably not the person to most authoritatively answer that. Alex Herbalis, who was on the earlier panel, is probably best positioned to answer that authoritatively. I would say that I was not aware of any major disruption. I did not see anything, but something could have happened that I was not aware of. But if you want, Carlos, I could ping Alex. I was just exchanging emails with him on Friday, so I could ask that question and have him get back to you directly, if that would help.
Yeah, I mean, it's more of a question of costs. I mean, how much can it cost? It was... Ethereum became much cheaper after their transition to less computational power involved in any transaction, and it achieved a transaction finality, which means you seize the domain and you have it, whereas before it was a bit tricky because the consensus had to be reached, and I always wondered how they would implement a domain name system if you can't see the particular domain. Okay, that's maybe the context of my question.
Yeah, and I think it's the way I would explain it to my mom is. The way I would explain it to my mom is the beauty of the DNS or the Web 2 domain names is it's kind of an all-you-can-eat menu. Once you pay your domain name registration fee, there are no incremental charges by most registrars or registries to make changes to name servers or the underlying information. The point that you have raised is that in some of the blockchain naming systems, when you do need to make changes to the underlying information, each of those changes potentially could incur an additional charge. And this, I think, goes to the point that Paul Hoffman was trying to raise, is that when those costs potentially become a burden, does the respective authoritative namespaces or those databases become out of sync, and does that then lead to security and stability issues? So that to me has always been the issue, and the way I would look at it is all you can eat Web 2, Web 3 tends to be more of an a la carte transactional model.
Yeah, absolutely. I was thinking exactly of this, because once you have a domain, you can make many changes in Web 2, but in Web 3, everything is a transaction, whether it is a change of name server or a DNSSEC key rollout or whatever, a new DS record for the registry. Everything costs money. I mean, every transaction has a cost. So yeah, good. Thank you.
So Andrew, I think we will give you back 11 minutes of time to get through some news.
Okay, thank you for that, Michael. Really interesting, as always. And yeah, I think particularly that last sort of point from Carlos, maybe to be continued for those of us in Manchester, either in person or online in a couple of weeks. So really looking forward to that panel discussion now. So thank you for the presentation, as always, Michael. Right, let me then quickly move on. Whilst my system is hopefully playing ball, just about, and we'll see if I can share additional slides. Anxiously, as I'm using multiple screens in a way that I wouldn't do, but makes all that much more exciting. For everybody else, at least. Not so much for me, but there you are. Right, so let's just briefly scramble through a few of these. Firstly, following on from last week's announcements from Quad9 of their support for DNS over HTTP 3 and also over DNS over QUIC. They've also announced that DNSSEC strict validation will be active across all of their service endpoints. So a series of announcements over a couple of weeks, quick succession, which is good to see. Also, it was quite interesting. Lu Heng for Laris Limited, I think it's fair to say, is not a fan of the current regional internet registry model. He's written a series of articles over several weeks that CircleID certainly has covered. And another one this week where he questions the mandate of RARs. It's certainly worth a read. But if you like, at the same time, Emmanuel Vitas has also published an article about China and the geopolitics of Africa's 6.2 million IPv4 addresses, which, from my perception, it is coming at some of the same issues as Lu Heng, but maybe taking the opposite interpretation of what the problem is. So I commend you if you're interested in sort of governance-related matters. So that's worth a look at both of those articles for balance. But I suspect that Emmanuel, from what he's published this week, and I think last week or the week before, is in fundamental disagreement with Lu Heng, who some of us will have met at RIPE and other places. So anyway, that was that one. As always, I'll skip over most of these. I think maybe I noticed something else. I didn't, but the last one on the screen, Trusted Notify Network. Interesting idea from Alban Kwan of Trusted Notify Networks about a new entity, not-for-profit, designed to change where the burden is for challenges, sort of DNS abuse type notifications, basically highlighting that the volumes are increasing, and it puts quite a lot of pressure on registries, registrars, and other parties. So potentially by using this trusted notifier network, where the notifier has to absolve any that take action, any consequences, essentially, that maybe shifts the burden elsewhere. Which I thought was an interesting idea. But Michael,
real quick, Andrew. I believe there was a presentation at ICANN 85 before the GAC where this trusted notifier, I believe it's the same one, or it could be a competing one, where they made a presentation before the ICANN Government Advisory Committee. Did you sit in on that, or did you see that presentation?
I didn't, but I think he's also got a slot and a session coming up soon as well. So I missed that one, but yeah, that would make a lot of sense, given he's established this not-for-profit and is now obviously trying to build some momentum behind it. I'm not necessarily endorsing this, but I think he makes some interesting points about the burden that's being caused. Something about it. This might be an answer. I mean, if you also look at things like the Global Signal Exchange, not solving the problem the same way, but there's consolidation of data to try and identify where there are issues. So there's a series of things here that are all happening in my head, at least, in broadly the same space. But I'll look out for that presentation. Thank you, Michael.
Just to say, I was involved in some of the technical stuff at the beginning of the Trusted Notifier Network setup. So I helped build the MVP for the system, and can answer some questions about that at some point if you have any, or might be good to get Alban on some point and just talk about it. I'm sure he'd like to.
Yeah, that's an excellent idea. Actually, that will be even better. Yes, and I think you did tell me, and I'd forgotten that. Apologies. Yeah, I thought it was sort of felt vaguely familiar. But I couldn't place where from, so probably because you told me. Thank you. And yes, let's maybe get Alban to come on and walk through it and do a far better job explaining it than I just did there. And then loads of other stuff about quite a few different things about social media. There seems to be momentum building towards a ban. I'm personally not sure that's the right solution, but that seems to be the direction of travel at the moment. A few other bits and pieces. Post-quantum security, Cloudflare announcing they had that fully in place by 2029. Just a reminder on the back of that Google and one other sort of said they believe that we will at the point where quantum computers can crack RSA and other encryption algorithms in 3 years. So clearly makes sense to have post-quantum security in place by then. There was also the cheery news that Anthropic, they got a new AI model which they're sufficiently concerned about its power that they're only letting testing happen behind closed doors because they're concerned about the implications if hackers get hold of it. And then the other thing which I skipped over, which there's a whole thing about notifiers. So AI-led remediation crisis, the bottom one on the slide, prompts HackerOne to pause bug bounties. Essentially, because some AI systems are getting so good at spotting bugs, I think they're having a rethink about how they handle the payment of bounties on the back of it, and whether the system can cope with volumes in the way. It's potentially a good thing that it is finding stuff at speed, but maybe needs to take some of the back. And in terms of some deadlines, keeping an eye on the time, as Michael mentioned earlier, if you want to go to the ICANN's Contracted Parties Summit, Registration closes today, so both in person and online, so register. Immediately after this call, I think you can attend remotely or in person. And you see various other things there, including a reminder in a few weeks' time for a few things closing, like non-augmented service account registration and the nog.fi call for presentations. A few deadlines coming up over the next number of weeks. Alexi.
Going back to that bug bounty thing, I'm not actually sure exactly what the reason for them was, but a lot of bug bounties have been put on hold simply because when there's money on offer, there's incentive for people to use AI to just manufacture bug reports, which are nonsensical, and someone still has to go through them, and it just doesn't work, basically.
Yeah, all sort of assessment process would need to be probably completely re-engineered. I would imagine for that reason, yeah, just it's almost like a DDoS attack potentially on the system if you're not careful. May not be the intent, but it's certainly the outcome, which is a concern. Thank you for that. Yeah, also on the back of that, just a quick reminder, new GTLD program, there's a talk on Wednesday, I think that might have been arranged by Echo, apologies. No, sorry, that was arranged by ICANN. Also, pretty much the same time on Wednesday as a global domain report session, which was, I think, arranged by or through Echo. And then, as you'll see, you've got the ICANN Contracted Parties Summit at the end of the month. And then stuff carried on, although the last one I mentioned, Infobox have scheduled a run through the updated NIST guidance on DNS security in early May. So again, that's online. Given the interest in that, I think it will worth we'll be at OR 46 and right. And final thing to say on that is R46 was at full capacity, had a wait list, but they haven't announced they've found some more seats. So if you were interested in going but couldn't register to attend in person, I believe there was additional capacity made available beyond the roughly 40 people that had already registered. But register quickly if you haven't already done so and want to go, because I suspect that additional won't last. I think there'll be plenty of us in Edinburgh for that, and then right 92 afterwards. Okay, and then finally, as we're just slightly over the hour, next week we're just doing a roundup of some of the stuff coming out of ITS 125, the RSA conference, the ITU study group 17 content week, maybe ICANN 85, etc. And also a reminder that during the meeting in Edinburgh, during the RIPE part of that, rather than OARC, we will do a test of doing something sort of hybrid, some in person, some remote. So anyone that's in Edinburgh will find a room to do it. And John Todd's going to do an update on some other Quad 9 related stuff, which should be fun, and also good to see people in person. Anyway, apologies for running slightly over and for the technical problems earlier, but thank you very much, Michael. That was a really interesting presentation. Have a fantastic week, everyone, and look forward to catching up next week. I will have switched it off and on again before then. So thanks all. Have a great week.
Bye-bye.